Festival of Dionysus, a celebration of theater, wine, and divine ecstasy. The Festival of Dionysus, also known as the City Dionysia te and Aste, was one of the most significant religious and cultural events in ancient Athens. Dedicated to Dionysus, the god of wine, fertility, and theater, the festival not only honored the divine, but also laid the foundation for Western drama and the performing arts. Celebrated in late March to early April, during the month of Elaphebolion in the Athenian calendar, the festival marked the arrival of spring and the beginning of the sailing season, symbolizing rebirth, release, and creative transformation. Origins and religious significance. The roots of the Dionysia lie deep in rural fertility rituals and mystery cults. Dionysus, a god associated with ecstasy, madness, and the life force itself, was believed to bring liberation through intoxication and artistic expression. In myth, Dionysus arrived in Athens from Eleutherae, a town on the Boeotian border, where the Athenians initially rejected him. As punishment, the god brought a plague until the Athenians relented, welcomed his cult, and institutionalized his worship through the festival. The Dionysia was part of a larger cycle of Dionysian festivals, including the rural Dionysia, Lenaea, and Anthesteria, but the city Dionysia was the most prestigious. It represented both a civic duty and religious devotion, combining ritual processions, dramatic contests, and public spectacle. Structure of the festival. The festival lasted several days, each filled with rituals, performances, and public participation. Here's a breakdown of its main components. 1. Proagon, pre-contest, held in the Odeon of Pericles before the actual festival began. The Proagon served as an official preview of the dramatic works to be presented. Playwrights introduced their actors, announced the titles of their plays, and paid tribute to those who had died in the service of the city. This event emphasized the civic dimension of the arts, with war heroes and playwrights honored on the same stage. 2. Pomp, procession. The festival opened with a grand procession or pompe from the city to the temple of Dionysus. Citizens, medics, resident foreigners, and even slaves participated. They carried phallic symbols, sacred objects, and offerings. Young men led sacrificial animals, and wine flowed freely. It was a moment of communal unity, where the city reaffirmed its religious identity. 3. Dithyrambic contests. The heart of Dionysian worship was the dithyramb, a choral hymn sung and danced by choruses of 50 men or boys from each tribe of Athens. These contests likely preserved the earliest forms of Dionysian worship and later evolved into structured drama. 4. Tragic and comic performances. Arguably the highlight of the festival, dramatic contests took place in the Theater of Dionysus, located on the south slope of the Acropolis. Each competing playwright presented a tetralogy, 3 tragedies and 1 satyr play. The satyr play, with its bawdy humor and chorus of satyrs, served as comic relief after the emotional intensity of tragedy. Famous dramatists like Aeschylus, Sophocles, Euripides, and Aristophanes all competed here. Tragedy explored moral dilemmas, fate, and the divine order, while comedy, especially old comedy, often mocked politics, public figures, and social norms. Only 3 playwrights were chosen each year for the tragedy competition, a reflection of the intense selectiveness and high status of Athenian drama. Similarly, 1 or 2 comic playwrights would present comedies on the final days. 5. Judging and prizes. Judging was both democratic and ritualistic. 10 judges, 1 from each tribe, were chosen by lot. Their votes were placed in an urn, and 5 were drawn at random to determine the winners. Victorious playwrights and choregoi, wealthy citizens who sponsored the productions, were awarded wreaths of ivy or other honors. The audience's reactions, however, played an informal but influential role in shaping reputations. Tash, civic and cultural impact. The Dionysia was not only a religious occasion, but also a manifestation of Athenian identity and civic pride. All male citizens were expected to attend. Even prisoners might be released temporarily to witness the plays. The festival reaffirmed democratic values and allowed the city to showcase its wealth, power, and cultural sophistication. It was also a forum for political and philosophical reflection. Tragedy addressed issues like justice, tyranny, war, and piety. Comedy gave voice to popular dissent and sometimes criticized the very institutions that sponsored the event. The performances served as civic education for Athenian citizens. In a society without mass media, drama functioned as a powerful tool for exploring collective trauma, e.g., the Peloponnesian War, ethical dilemmas, and the dynamics of power and responsibility. Dionysus and the nature of theater. The presence of Dionysus as the patron of drama was no accident. His myths often center on themes of transformation, illusion, and disruption of order, precisely the themes explored in tragic theater. In tragedy, heroes face the limits of human knowledge and control, often suffering due to forces beyond their understanding. Dionysian ecstasy, like dramatic catharsis, offers both destruction and renewal. Theater, like Dionysus himself, stood on the threshold between rational order and divine madness, between the city's structured life and the untamed forces it sought to domesticate. Audiences were emotionally moved and morally challenged, experiencing what Aristotle would later call catharsis, a purging of pity and fear. Women and the festival. Though women did not act in the plays, and their presence in the theater is debated, female roles in the dramas were central. Tragic heroines like Antigone, Medea, or Clytemnestra dramatized tensions around gender, power, and morality. The festival, while male-dominated in form, often centered on feminine experience, reflecting Dionysus' own androgynous boundary-crossing nature. Legacy and influence. The city Dionysia left an enduring legacy on world culture. It institutionalized theater as an art form, established canonical genres, and inspired philosophical theories of art and drama. The structure of Greek tragedy influenced Renaissance drama, modern opera, and 20th century political theater. More profoundly, it demonstrated how performance could serve both ritual and reflection, pleasure and pedagogy. Through myth, chorus, and dramatic conflict, the festival provided a space where a city could contemplate itself, its gods, its laws, and its people. Conclusion. The Festival of Dionysus was more than a religious observance. It was a civic rite, cultural landmark, and artistic explosion, combining sacred ritual with democratic participation, political critique, and aesthetic innovation. It brought together the divine and the human, the tragic and the comic, the individual and the collective. In honoring Dionysus, Athens celebrated not just a god, but the very forces of creativity, transformation, and community. The echoes of those springtime festivals still resound in every theatrical performance today. From ancient amphitheaters to modern stages, the spirit of Dionysus, the god who bridges madness and insight, chaos and order, continues to inspire.